Yo, what's good? It's your man 100 Grand Ross with The Rock Never Stops. Today, I wanted to do a video about why Trae Young still owns the Knicks. If you like this video, smash the like button for me, hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. Truly appreciate all the love and support and comments. I definitely try to get back to as many as possible. Look, I know it sounds a little clickbaitish. Um, Something like that is pretty inflammatory for most Knicks fans. Uh, but I think that there's some underlying truths to it. When you look at what the Atlanta Hawks have done this offseason, along with what the Knicks have done and could potentially still do with the Donovan Mitchell trade still looming, there are some really key elements to really take a look at and analyze, and I'm going to do that in this video. The first one is fit. It's fit. Now, a lot of people looked at DeJounte Murray and Trae Young and said, yo, these are two ball-dominant guards coming from teams where they led the NBA in usage rate, right? Two guys who are used to having the ball in their hands all the time. But this is something that I think has been over hyped upon, where people have really tried to use this as something that is a deterrent to their ability to play together. But I believe it's actually kind of a strength. Both of these guys are used to dominating mostly because they had to dominate the ball. They're used to having the ball in their hands all the time because if they weren't playmaking for themselves and others, there weren't too many other guys on their team who actually could. On the Atlanta Hawks, you had Bogdan Bogdanovic, who has a little bit of playmaking skills, pretty decent, but he dealt with injuries throughout the year and really struggled to find that rhythm that he had the previous season, right? And so it really became up to Trae Young to make all the plays for this team, right? Now, when you look at DeLon Wright coming off the bench, he's not necessarily a high-level playmaker, though he's competent. He's definitely a backup, right? But then when you look at DeJounte Murray, similar situation, especially after the Derek White trade, even though he's more of a setup facilitator versus a playmaker, DeJounte Murray was also somebody who's used to having to do all the playmaking. But this is where it actually works as a benefit, right? Because both of them know what it's like to carry the full load. And to carry the full load and run into the play-in tournament where they get waxed, where they get locked in on by a good defensive team, and they get absolutely shut down. It's embarrassing, it's frustrating, and it's something that humbles you as a lead guard or even a lead player, period, because you recognize that you need help. Now, the dope part about it is that the person who's coming in is already a friend, right? DeJounte Murray and Trae Young have a long-standing relationship that spans back to like AAU days, coming up through the circuits, getting drafted around the same time, coming into the NBA as young, exciting guards who have a lot of potential, right? Even though Trae Young's rocket took off faster, Murray has always been an elite talent, right? And so both of them are having this not only mutual respect, but they actually enjoy playing together. They actually enjoy sharing the court together. And this chemistry dynamic is something that is insanely important. Many times, a lot of general managers and teams try to piece teams together, throw teams together. But what is oftentimes discounted and what is one of the main elements that helps teams really reach higher highs in the playoffs is that continuity, that gelling, that ability to trust one another, to be able to play off of one another instinctually and know that each player is playing for each other and not for themselves. When a friend comes to your team, you have all the more reason to try to make it work. You're that much more selfless, right? You want to see your friend thrive right there next to you as much as you are. And when you begin to have that type of energy on the team, it's infectious. It's infectious. Now, I know a lot of people talked about the relationship between John Collins and Trae Young, and I want to touch on that. Look, the reality is John Collins has plateaued. He's plateaued. I don't know what he does during the off season. I was watching him during the summer league at the Drew League, playing with Trae Young, and it was really disappointing. I saw somebody who wasn't able to show out and show new things that he's been working on, that he's been trying, that he's been developing. He looked like the same guy who wants to stretch the floor a little bit, crash the rim, catch lobs, and hit the boards, right? Now, this doesn't discount everything that John Collins does. He does a lot of things at a high level that you need to at that position. That's why he got paid. Not just because he showed some more scoring prowess and some upside, but the fact that he could be relied upon to be in the right place at the right time, setting really good screens, being in the right position on defense, rotating on time. He can challenge the rim. He can defend multiple positions, bigger two guards all the way up through centers. He's able to communicate well on defense, right? He does a lot of things at a high level that make him really valuable. He just doesn't do what this team also needs, which is to be a high level scorer, playmaker. And now they have DeJounte Murray, right? This is what is going to actually, I believe, bring this team together, is that it's going to allow guys to fall into natural roles. Deandre Hunter, he's coming into a contract year, so I think he's going to have a great season. I think he's going to come in not just in shape, but he's going to play some of his best basketball. And when you have guys who can play make and set up other guys at a high level, it makes the game easy, right? It makes the game really, really easy. Now, another reason why the Atlanta Hawks and Trae Young should be excited about this year and really be able to see themselves as one of the top-notch teams in terms of playoff standing is because their defense is about to take a huge leap. When you have not just a good defender, but an elite defender at your point of attack on defense on the perimeter, what this does is it sets everything else up in line, right? You have another great wing defender in DeAndre Hunter. You have really great backline defense in John Collins, Clint Capella especially, and Onyeka Okongwu. Those guys are going to be able to clean the board, defend the rim, rotate on time, and have a great amount of size to be able to prevent guys, even if they do get past a DeJounte Murray or DeAndre Hunter. And when you have four good defenders or elite defenders surrounding one lower than average defender in Trae Young, it allows you to mask a lot of his deficiencies and weaknesses, right? Much like the Golden State Warriors were able to do many times, where they would have Stephen Curry, who has improved a whole lot on the defensive end, right? But you have a Klay Thompson, you have an Andre Iguodala or Andrew Wiggins, you have Draymond Green, you had a Andrew Bogut, or you had even Kayvon Looney, who was able to play defense at a high level, moving their feet, challenging at the rim, grabbing defensive boards, right? And this allows you to still have a high level defense. And this is where I think the Atlanta Hawks are going to be in the best position to really continue to dominate the Knicks, right? I think if they have another run in the playoffs in the first round, I see the same result. And this is almost regardless if Donovan Mitchell is there or not. Because as much as I would consider Donovan Mitchell an elite talent who can match up with what Trae Young can do in the playoffs, I still see the defensive deficiencies in that backcourt, which means that both DeJounte Murray and Trae Young are going to get off. They're going to have a great series. But if you can have DeJounte Murray shut down or slow down one of those two lead guards, right, it's going to greatly inhibit the rest of the Knicks offense. Now, I know the Knicks play really, really hard, but in the playoffs, everybody is playing really hard. And when you have more talent and both teams are playing hard, the team with the most talent is going to win out every single time. Now, another reason why the Atlanta Hawks and Trae Young are still going to own the Knicks is because the Knicks still really haven't solved how to get the most out of Julius Randle. Even though I love the Jalen Brunson pickup, it's still going to be the type of situation where he's going to have to be able to create his shot against guys who already know that they can shut him down, that they can take away his strengths and force him into his weaknesses. Between DeAndre Hunter and John Collins, those are two guys who have the ability to go at Julius Randle. And if you can stymie probably one of the biggest forces on your offense, right? We already know what happens when he begins to get into his head, right? He stops playing defense. He fouls easily, right? He's not hitting the boards as hard. And he begins to become a liability to a degree because he won't stop shooting, even though he's being forced into hard shots. And the lack of offensive creativity by Tom Thibodeau is going to put you right back in that same situation. Now, I think it will be great to have a more improved R.J. Barrett, but you're also going to have a more improved DeAndre Hunter, right? It's going to be great to have Jalen Brunson, but he's not better than Trae Young, right? He's not better than DeJounte Murray, right? And as much as you might argue that they're a lot closer than you may think, right? If I have to bet on DeJounte Murray's defense or Jalen Brunson's offense, I'm going to go with defense every single time. Because we know in the playoffs, everyone's shooting percentage goes down, right? Everyone's ability to create for themselves, to score the same level generally goes down. And despite the great year that Jalen Brunson had last year, you have to remember he caught a lot of people off guard. He started off against a Utah Jazz team that was not playing defense at a high level and was able to exploit that, right? Then they were able to go up against other teams who were not able to really go at Jalen Brunson and force him into what he didn't want to do, because really nobody saw that Jalen Brunson coming. Nobody saw the Jalen Brunson who's going to be taking over games and be able to lead a team through a playoff series. But he's not going to catch anybody off guard, especially playing in New York. And I think the Atlanta Hawks still have more weapons to be able to control him and to be able to contain him than teams did last season. And probably far more than the Knicks are going to have an ability to contain just about anyone on the Atlanta Hawks. The fact that they still don't have an elite perimeter defender who can not so much shut guys down, because it's really hard to shut down elite scorers in the NBA, but can at least contain them, is an issue. It's just a straight up issue, because when you look at the rest of the Eastern Conference, whether it's the Milwaukee Bucks and Chris Middleton, whether it's the Boston Celtics and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, whether it's teams like the Toronto Raptors, who are going to have Gary Trent Jr., Scotty Barnes, right, Fred VanVleet, you're going to have a slew of high-level scorers, guys who can create for themselves and others on the perimeter that you're going to have an answer for, right? Even the Philadelphia 76ers, who are going to have Tobias Harris, James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, right? These teams are going to have high-level scorers that you're going to have somebody who can contain them on that perimeter. Otherwise, what you're going to see more of is Mitchell Robinson in foul trouble, because you're going to have that Olay defense on the perimeter, sending guys straight at him constantly. And instead of him being able to maximize his potential as a shot blocker, he's going to be getting into foul trouble trying to cover for guys who are not able to move their feet or don't have the commitment on that end. And as much as we might laud a Tom Thibodeau for being this great defensive coach and motivating guys, look, if you don't have the talent, you don't have the talent. And as we saw, even with all of his schemes and all of his plans, the guys who don't have the ability to defend at a high level simply don't. Simply don't. And the reality is, if you're not that guy by the time you get into the league, rarely do you all of a sudden become that guy, right? Rarely do you become from a weak perimeter defender to all of a sudden being a great perimeter defender. This is extremely rare. And so this is another issue that the New York Knicks are going to have to solve, especially if they trade away Quentin Grimes for Donovan Mitchell, because Quentin Grimes is hands down the best perimeter defender. Cam Reddish has a little bit of potential on that end, but hasn't shown the ability to stay healthy or consistent on the offensive end. And so you're going to have to ask yourself, especially if you trade for Donovan Mitchell, how are you going to fill that role? Who out there can you get? And especially right now, because it's late. It's late in the offseason. So most of the guys that you would have wanted to get are already gone and signed. So hopefully they can address this. But until then, Trae Young and the Atlanta Hawks still own the Knicks. And I'd have to bet on them in a playoff matchup. But let me know what you all think. As always, like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Definitely comment in the comments section. I appreciate all the love and support, and definitely try to get back to as many comments as possible. With that, I'm out, y'all. Peace.